Tevez da solo, Tevez al limite dell'area, gli fa fuori tutti, Tevez, si apre la porta, Tevez, gol, da dietro, Pirlo dentro,
Hey Juventini, welcome back to the All Juve Cast channel, of course, where it's all Juve all the time, and we're coming off 1-1 draw against Fiorentina. None of us predicting draw there yesterday. I don't think anybody would have predicted the style and manner that draw went down in. Okay, so it's a frustrating one. We're gonna tackle it all. There's a ton of mixed feelings and whatnot going around right now with Juventini. We look at this live chat. I mean, man, we come into the green room and you guys have already been at it for 40 minutes in this chat, venting and airing out all the frustrations, and we're gonna get into it all today in the show. You guys are awesome. Like, I mean, I was shocked to see it. I think even Lucci was when we get in here, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot of frustration out there. I think one of the comments is Allegri is worse than Calciopoli, and I mean, that's it. That's saying a hell of a lot. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but we're going to get into all these feelings. You guys have every right to feel however you want. It's I'll never tell fans how they should and shouldn't feel and whatnot. So it is what it is. This is Jeremiah coming in here, guys. Absolutely disgusting football by Allegri. Vast majority of Juve fans are asking for him to be sacked. The tiny balance who are still defending him probably accept mediocrity. The thing that I'm noticing, and we're going to get into this more on the show, is that a lot of Allegri defenders are actually turning as well because it's getting very, very hard to defend him. Are you starting to see that too, Luch?
Seems that way, but there's some that'll never change. But it looks like we've turned some heads.
Yeah, and I mean, here's a prime example. Vito, I'm a fan of him myself, but it's hard to defend him after these performances. And we're not talking about just yesterday. I mean, the signs are there last season. This season, you have Sampdoria, you have Spezia, and now you have Fiorentina, which was probably the worst out of the lot. So it's getting very, very hard to defend. And I mean, sure, players, their part and the part they're going to be responsible and accountable for, we are going to get into on this show as well. But ultimately, whose job is it to make these corrections, to get these guys going? So it's going to be challenging. We're going to tackle it all. Jeremiah, sorry for venting frustration, guys. If anything, this is the perfect platform to do it because the AJC podcast rocks. There you go, Jeremiah. You're absolutely right. This is the place to come and vent, okay? And we're going to get going here. For everybody that's tuning in to this podcast on your audio outlets, get over to the YouTube channel, okay? Subscribe to it and check out all the daily update videos. We got some other cool content coming out as well. We've got Joe's trip to Turin and him taking in the Around Turin experience with Maurizio. And I'm finally wrapping up editing on the LA stuff and the LA trip, so we'll have some of that fun as well. Without further ado, we're going to get to the news first, okay? So we're going to get to the news and tackle some of these tidbits floating around today. Then we'll get into the match recap, okay? So real quick, there's not a lot of news, but there's some. Di Maria, taken out yesterday, precautionary, okay? But there is pain in his calf today, and he's being monitored. He's going to be assessed after training session and whatnot. So, again, we got to keep tabs on Di Maria. Frustrating there. Rabiot is back. So Rabiot is going to be back in the mix. Sandro has a flexor problem. Will be assessed today as well. Juventus have open talks to extend Danilo's contract until 2025. So injuries frustrating. Frustrating thing. We've always had to deal with it for the past 4 years now, like an abundance of them. It's not really a surprise when you have some of the older guys getting them and creeping them up. So Di Maria, we just got to take care of him. We got to take care of him. It's going to be us. Like, I mean, he's almost going to be treated as a luxury type player, right? Yeah, so we've got to really keep tabs on him. It's going to be the same as when Pogba comes back. That's why I said after that Roma match, that blueprint was laid. If we can stick with that, we have something that can be really good because then it makes it easier. Like if guys like Miretti can contribute and we can get them firing, and then when Chiesa comes back, he'll be a main, and at his age, he should be a main. But then that allows you to kind of protect Di Maria. You know, and then Pogba, the same thing. If you could sort out the midfield while utilizing Miretti, Locatelli, now we have Paredes, whatnot, it just makes it easier, right? Right now, not so much. Not so much because Di Maria, if he was good to go, I would have played him yesterday as well. So it's a difficult one. Danilo's contract one, this one's got fans fired up.
Yeah.
So this has got them fired up. He's 31 years old. And it's being reported that like some of the headlines are or big club, you know, in parentheses, like as a joke or sarcastically, or how can you take yourself seriously? Way to accept mediocrity. I mean, 31 years old. I would like to think at my age, it's not very old. But in terms of the players, he's still got a couple of years. You extend them at that. My biggest thing is when you extend the old guys is get that wage down. So when you're extending the older players, as long as they're contributing, which Danilo, hell, he's in discussion for man of the match yesterday.
Absolutely.
If we're being honest. And he always gives all, he's a constant professional. He's not a problem. I have no problem with signing a 31-year-old for 2 more years to take him to 33.
Yeah.
Again, just not at the same wage. When you start getting to those older guys, I like to see the wage come down. If he's cool with that, I'm fine with it. Okay. To be honest, like taking him to 33, not the end of the world. If the wage comes down, perfect. Because having Danilo as a rotational guy, a guy that covers multiple roles, no problem. Because you got to think Cuadrado's gone next year too, and he's one of those utility guys. Danilo becomes that utility guy. So I don't actually see an issue with it. Luch, how do you feel about this?
I think if you can bring the wage down, for sure. I do like I do like that comment about 1+1. I think that would be a good idea. But again, he's been every game he's played this year. He's been one of our most noticeable players. I have no issues with it. I'm a big fan. I know you guys know that, but yeah, as long as the drop off's not too big. We've seen it with Cuadrado, we've seen it with Sandro, but they have also played a lot more than Danilo has over the years. So I think that's contributed to why they've fallen so hard. But Danilo, great leader, great player. You know, I have no issues with it. I'm all for it.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Del's thinking 2025 is a little too long. He would like one with an option of one. Sure, that'd be fine too. For me, again, the biggest thing, just bring wage down. Try and bring wage down that little bit. We got a good question in here from Lester there. Question: are we sure that Max is still annoyed that we sacked him years ago? And is this his master plan to get revenge on the club? I only ask because his team hates to push forward. So this question I'm going to twist. I'm going to twist into something else when we get further on. Okay, so this is a good question because it just sparks me in an avenue I want to go down, and we're going to get to it after the match recap. Okay, so again, not a whole lot in the news sector, so I'm going to just flag this one because it's going to spark the conversation a little bit later. Let's get to the match itself. Okay, this recap is not going to take long. Okay, Juventini. So we're going to go with the lineup. It was pitting Cuadrado, Bremer, Danilo, Sandro, McKennie, Paredes, Locatelli in the middle with Di Maria, Milik, and Kostic up top. We talked about it in the match day live, Luch, before we went on there. The big question mark was the midfield. How is that midfield going to play out? Obviously, Paredes literally joined a couple days ago. He's already thrown into the mix, and I'm fine with it, to be honest, that he was thrown into the mix. But with McKennie and Locatelli on either side of him, I really had the question of like, are we still going to go into a 4-2-3-1? Does that put McKennie as the attacking mid? Are we going to attack with both these guys? Like, how is it going to play out? It was a mess.
It was a disaster.
The midfield was abysmal. Paredes, I'm not going to go too hard on him, obviously, because of him just getting their first game with the team and the rest of the team. Like we talked about losing our legs against Spezia. We had nothing in this one outside of 15, 20 minutes to start the game, and the rest was back foot, and it was rough to watch, okay? So I'm going to go easy on Paredes. You can see the skill that's there. Like, you
Mhm.
could see what's there. I'm not throwing in the towel on Paredes. There was a lot of people, already going off about this move and this transfer. Relax. But McKennie and Locatelli were bad, like absolutely abysmal. McKennie was awful in decision making, and Locatelli couldn't hit a 6-foot pass to save his life, and just flat, no energy, no sign
Mhm.
of life. Like, even at early on in the 15 to 20 minutes at the start, when we were in it and going back and forth with Fiorentina, it was Paredes that was
Yeah.
putting the press on and pressuring and winning the ball back and getting it for us. So there's some issues there. And if Locatelli's tired, if he's tired, Max, make a change or don't start. Like, if there's fatigue there, I mean, I don't know. It's just that midfield was by far the worst phase of our game.
Yep.
Milik
100%.
was left high and dry, completely high and dry. So it's a tough one. We'll just quickly go through these, Luch. So
Yep.
Juve obviously striking first through Milik. Cross coming in from Quadrado, volleyed by Kostic. And then Milik just chests it, directs it into goal. Great start.
Mhm.
It ends there, and we go on the back foot
All
for the
downhill.
rest of the game. Like, and we're not even kidding. This is not even a joke. Like, I wish I was joking.
So for about 81 minutes, it was just downhill. Just got worse.
We had another opportunity. Okay, so Fiorentina comes back immediately. Okay, and Bremer with a huge block on a back post attempt. Quadrado was selling out for it too. Big block there. Then we come up the other side of the pitch. McKennie. This is the one, obviously, everybody's seen the freeze frames and all this. McKennie has to, and if we think back to a couple games prior, Quadrado found himself in the same situation, and he was shooting directly at the keeper, and everybody's like, oh, pass it across. The pass wasn't there on the Quadrado one to Vlahovic. Everybody wanted, but if you followed that play, it was gone. The shot's got to be just the basics. Play the high percentages, low, far post, maybe get a rebound to your guys running on. McKennie, my God, just he can take a step. He could take a step in and then try to go short side, try to go far side. Like, that's a great scoring angle. Like, we're treating it as and I get it. Sure, it could hit the post. It could be stopped. But to come out of that with absolutely nothing is unacceptable.
Absolutely.
Okay. Sure, the ball goes out. We bounce around a bit and come back, end up getting a corner kick. Okay. And then the corner kick was brutal. Like, we actually conceded on this corner kick. Comes out, tries to get cleared, and Di Maria, it bounces over him. He tried to stop it while facing his back to ball. Didn't work out. And then Locatelli does not press the man who's getting to that. And that guy's able to turn and spot out Kouame, who got behind. At that point, it was Paredes and Quadrado. So they don't even have the defensive awareness to, like, pick these out. But Locatelli, at that point, even if you have to take a foul, shut the thing down, and let your defenders get back. It was a mess. That was a mess. And from that point on, okay, all Fiorentina. They get a PK, okay? Paredes handball there.
I'll give him some credit on that. He didn't do it on purpose. It was just unlucky. So let's not hate on him too hard for that one.
Yeah, but regardless, I mean, these things are going to happen when you're allowing wave after wave after wave and just not fighting back. So Paredes gets a handball. Perin gets enough to put this thing off the post. It goes across goal, and there you have it. We're out there. Now, is that a wake-up call? I was yelling for it on the watch-along, like, wake up. If that doesn't do it, nothing will. And it turns out that didn't do it. 65 minutes we proceeded to play without an attempt. Without an attempt. That's wild. Crazy. The second half had 0 total attempts from you. Not even that we didn't have attempts. Our players didn't get in a position to even think about having an attempt. And that's not even an exaggeration. Incredible. So the match, like we carry on, Perin ends up making a good stop on an Amrabat shot in the second half as well. Credit to Perin, stopping a PK, and then the rest was just absolutely abysmal. This match ends 1-1, and we pretty much stole that one because we didn't deserve a single thing out of the one.
Nope.
It is completely unacceptable, a performance like that, to literally, I don't care what team you play, I don't care who it is, to have no attempt, and not only that, but no fight, no drive to, hey guys, like, we got to snap into this, we got to do it. My biggest thing in this one also, okay, besides the players and their effort and their work rate, because I always say this, and everybody that tunes in hears me say this all the time, what makes this unacceptable to me is the fact that the players had no fight and no desire in there and no legs about them. That is the bare minimum, the absolute bare minimum. If you're out there and we're going through the motions and it's lazy like that, I expect something, a fire lit under these guys' asses, some changes to be made.
Yeah.
But the midfield, in my opinion, was the worst phase, and it was the last thing to be changed. 83rd minute substitute. It was the last position we made a change in, and it was the worst phase in our game. Milik was left as high and dry as Vlahovic is, and he was getting the ball, and he was containing it well, but he had nobody to play to, nobody to go to. This was awful, awful performance, and I hope it changes drastically, and it better change drastically, because if not, I'm going to have to start explaining to my wife why I'm drinking at 6 a.m. because that is absolutely awful. Lucci, that's basically all I have to say about this one. Let's get your overview, your thoughts as you were watching this, and like things that you wanted to see change and whatnot, and attempted at least.
Yeah. Where do you even begin? I understand Anthony mentioned before, the players not being able to complete a few passes in a row, and players this, players that. But then again, is the coach not seeing this? If we're seeing it, he's seeing it. Why is nothing getting changed? Why are you not making changes earlier? Why are you leaving, Locatelli, who looks dead, Paredes, who looks dead? You got to make these changes earlier, because you're just inviting them to continue to pressure us. And then we saw, they've had their chances. They could have easily scored 2 to 3 goals yesterday. No question. We didn't have a single attempt. I think we had one shot on target the whole match, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, one shot on target. 4 attempts,
one on target.
One on target. Roughly 40% possession throughout the whole match. We stole a point. We did not deserve a point at all. And, you started well for the first 9-10 minutes. McKennie, whatever, we can say whatever we want about him. I'm finished with him. But after his miss, it was just continuously downhill. Just everything got worse. Couldn't make a pass. Couldn't, clear the ball. Couldn't do. We couldn't get out of our own half. How do you allow that to as the coach of Juventus? How do you let that happen? How do you let that continue for 60 plus minutes, whatever it may be? It's unacceptable. Regardless of the players being good enough or being motivated enough, that's what the coach is paid to do. He's paid to make changes. He's paid to motivate his players. If he does none of that, I have no sympathy for you. I can't. I'd give him enough time. We've brought in players for him, the players that he's requested, so on and so forth. It's still not working. I don't know what else to say about him.
Yeah, and there's not much you could say other than that in this one. I mean, it's again, we talked about it early on. Even the Allegri camp, and as amongst Juve supporters, cannot defend this football. It's unwatchable. It's unwatchable football. It's so negative. And I fail to believe that it's a matchup thing. Like some are saying, well, they pressed us hard. Figure out how to beat that press. And if what you're doing is not working whatsoever, you have to make some changes. You have to make some tweaks. Again, you suffered the most in the midfield, and you didn't change anything there until 83 minutes. Miretti's on the bench. Fagioli's on the bench. McKennie and Locatelli were abysmal. Like, change the setup, make it 2 pivots, have 2 guys dropping back and try to bring in more of Fiorentina in order to bypass that line. Maybe try 2 forwards so that you have more link up for Milik, because he was holding up the ball well. He just had no support. Try anything, even if it's the wrong attempt, try something.
Yeah.
To continue that game was essentially like us not even trying, is essentially how it felt. And we're going to get into even more. It's incredibly frustrating. I'm going to remind everybody, please like the video while you're here tuning in. Okay. It goes a long way. We're going to touch on a few things here. Obviously we do the AJC tweet of the match. We're going to do our man of the match, also sponsored by our shop, which is Striped Hearts Apparel. If you guys are looking for ways to support the channel, super chats enabled. Also check out the store, get some cool gear, and help support the channel. All right. Man of the match, if you had to, Lucci, who are you picking for man of the match?
Perrine, without a question.
Perrine?
Yeah. Good save on Amrabat, PK save, made some,
Perrine, I had shouts for Danilo as well. So Perrine, Danilo, I think you can even slot Bremer in there, but Danilo had more work from his flank and his side there.
And
so,
considering how starved Milik was, I think he deserves a shout as well. Poor guy was feeding on scraps, and I like that he's so aggressive and wants to get involved and do something. Like
Milik
I need more players like that.
To look good. Yeah. He looks good. And to be fair, Max screwed my prediction up because Milik was on pace for more than a brace potentially, and I called a brace. Joe Cappuccino said no, you got a goal early, and we decided that that was good enough. All right. AJC tweet of the match. Hey, this one last week we had 2 in contention. This was no contest. Right here. There you go. That's it. She forced me to watch Allegri's Juventus. This took the cake. This was the AJC tweet of the match.
Fantastic.
Congratulations to Keithshare 1897. I thought that was pretty damn funny. There was some other good ones. Okay. One was obviously the McKenny direct message to him just saying "Tira cazzo." That was pretty funny too. But this one took the cake, throwing in the Johnny Depp there. So gold. Good stuff. Good stuff. Hey, if we can't have fun with it and at least be able to laugh, we're going to be miserable after games like that. So we got to have some kind of humor about it. Okay. But back to business. Max Allegri. Ooh. So it's bad enough we have to watch that mess yesterday. The words of Max continue to just be fuel on fire when he does this, and he did it again yesterday. But obviously with the PSG comment, hey, he just put PSG, realistically, the important match is winning at home to Benfica. Listen, whether it's realistic or not, because it is realistic, like realistically, and we all said it. We all said and felt the exact same thing as what Max was saying. Okay. We knew going into that group it was going to be a tricky group, and we can't falter against Benfica because PSG is going to be extremely tough to beat. We're a transitioning team. We all knew that. We all talked about that. He said it. Okay. It's realistic. The problem is I don't want to hear it after that match. Max never reads the room. He's never been like that. So my whole thing was people should not be surprised. He always does that. He never reads the room. He says whatever he says, and we just go on about our business. And all I needed to hear, because somebody asked me perfectly, well, what would you want to hear? I'll tell you what I would have said if I was the manager. Because I can understand why Juventini gets so frustrated and why they would be insulted by our coach saying something like that after a match like that. Because all I need is plain and simple. We'll approach PSG on Tuesday with whatever we're going to give it our best.
Yeah.
We'll give our best against PSG. It has to be better than it was today. I hope we never see a game like what happened today. We should apologize to our fans for that performance because it's unacceptable. And we're going to go to work and try and do the best we can to make sure that never happens again, because that damn brand of football is unacceptable. It's unacceptable to have that many guys in your lineup go through the motions. That's all he's got to do. Take accountability, take responsibility, and say you're going to work on it, but don't try and feed it. Like, stop pissing in our cup and tell us it's apple juice. Like, we're supposed to think, oh, this is cool, this is fine, everything's fine. No. That's all I need. I need you to take accountability and tell me that what we're seeing is not the plan. Because otherwise, this is why Juventini think this is the plan. That better not be the plan. Luch,
if it's the plan,
go on here on these thoughts here.
Man, if it's the plan, we're already in trouble. We're in even deeper trouble if that's the plan. I think if we played much better yesterday, his comments would have like, no one would have cared. No one would have been like, okay, we won, continue on. We'll figure out PSG. We'll worry about it when it comes on Tuesday. But the fact that you just played like that for 80 minutes and did absolutely nothing against Fiorentina, who's about 4 tiers below PSG, is not acceptable. He did not say, we didn't play well. He said he didn't take any, like you said, didn't take any accountability, nothing. He just went about his business, said whatever. And he's like, okay, well, that's it. We'll worry about Benfica. Well, you got PSG. Worry about that too. Worry about what you just fucking played today. Sorry, I just swore. That's my bad. Heated.
Yeah, and that's the big thing is I can understand why Juventini would be upset and almost feel insulted, okay? You have Juventini that bring up the classic, vince no è importante, l'unica cosa che conta, right? Like, winning's all that matters, essentially. But even in that, it's like, it's just a motto, it's a saying, it's something that we're built, like, we loved it because it was Bonaparte, a huge, massive figure in the Juventus world and whatnot. Max has never, ever cared about that. So I'm not surprised by his words, but the biggest thing is he's got to start, like, if I'm a coach, do you not want to show some type of respect to the fans, to the supporters? Like, I think and we know he gets a kick out of these interviews, and he's always brutally dishonest in them, like, it's hilarious to him and stuff. But you've got to start reading the room, Max. You're on a short leash as it is. I mean, that's not the way to go about it. And what does it do for the players? So here's the big question. We talked about this earlier, and I flagged that question because I said it's going to spark more. So it's not necessarily that I think Allegri, this was not the one. That's a good one too that we're going to get to. It was a little bit ahead here. I said, it's not that he's coming back for some revenge, okay? It's not that, but the question has to be asked, with us not pushing forward all this, are the players, is Max going to lose the room at some point? That fear's got to be there, is it not, Luch?
It has to be. After he's saying these things, like, as a player who wants to win or who has won, like Di Maria or Pogba, well, him and Pogba have a different relationship, so whatever. But like Vlahovic and Chiesa, they're seeing these comments and they're like what? Like, we want to, like, they want to go out there and win. They want to attack. They want to score. They're not just there to sit back. Like, I don't know how many times yesterday I saw Kostic and Di Maria behind, in our own, our own half, in our own 18. Like, why are they so deep? Why do we have 11 guys that in our own half? How are we going to score that? Like, how are we going to do anything like that? I don't know. Yeah. Like, have you ever heard a different coach say similar words like that? Like, I don't think I've ever heard Conte or Mancini or Pep Guardiola. Like, I've never heard them say things like that. And it shouldn't be like that.
Yeah. So the catch to it, as Anthony's kind of bringing in here, is that it sounds like the players like Max, and you never hear former players talk bad about Max. But I don't know, like, I'm just questioning.
Different time, though. Different, like, that was years ago. With the different players now, different team. Like, younger players now, their motivation might be different compared to what you're saying 3 years ago.
Like, I'd like to ask Anthony a question, and everybody in live chat, you as well, Luch. Can we honestly think that players will stay and want to remain playing this brand of football. I think some would probably still out of love for the club, but I don't expect a guy like Vlahovic to stick around on a defense first team. This guy should be competing for Capocannoniere like annually. I don't expect him to stick around if it continues. Does everybody here? Do you guys think that? I don't believe it. I don't believe that he will.
I agree.
It's just it's frustrating. It's frustrating. I mean, he's got to figure out a way to put it together. For me, the biggest thing with Max yesterday, because obviously these games are played and there's another team involved. Fiorentina, I said this going into it, they will not change for anybody. They don't care who the opponent is. Sure, they don't always get the results, but I respect the fact about Italiano that he believes in what he's trying to achieve and that he goes about his game regardless of who the opponent is. He did the same against Napoli, earning a 0-0 draw. He did the same thing against us. They press. They go in a 4-3-3, they press, and they want to take the games to their opponents. They did that, and we had no answer for the press. So we've talked about Max. Now it's time to get to the players because they're not free and clear in all of this, okay? But one of the things is we all agreed to it, and we have been agreeing with it, and everybody in the live, the majority was all on the same page. This team has much more quality than the sides previous, okay? 100%. Last year's 100%, like it is an improved team. So to say that we're not capable of playing better football is mind-blowing to me because we can't continue to just, what are we going to do? Change the entire team year in, year out? Eventually, it's going to come down to Max, whether people believe he's the problem or not. Unfortunately, it comes with the territory of being the manager. It's up to you to get the best out of this team. Now, in a results-driven world, how much do we think that the brass of Juve is looking at the actual style and the actual performances? Because if you look at it on paper, we're 5 games in, have only allowed 2 goals, and, you know, we're sitting at 8 points, we're undefeated. So, like, are they going to be fine with that? Is there more at the end of the line? For me, the results, it's fine, but it's not fine because we're capable of much, much more. Like those draws, I'm sorry. They should be games. We should be at least competing for the win. And against Sampdoria, we were dreadful. And against Fiorentina, we were even worse. Even worse. I get that Fiorentina is a tricky game, especially at the Artemio Franchi, but my God, you have to at least try for the victory.
And what we said yesterday morning about their defense, how many times did we actually test that not great defense? Once? We tested them once and we scored. And then after that, it was sit back and defend. Of course, you're only going to have 2 goals conceded when you're defending for 75 plus minutes.
And this is another thing too, is we want to talk about this team. Like, I cannot get behind the defense that this team, Juve, is not ready enough and we're still lacking a bunch of quality. And the reason I can't is because what you just mentioned about testing the defense, stretching them out, finding areas in behind them because of how Fiorentina presses. Udinese was able to do that. Are you telling me Udinese carries more quality than we did on the pitch yesterday? Probably absolutely not. There's no way. So I don't want to hear about us not having the quality. Like, we have the quality to at least fight and do better than what we saw on the pitch yesterday. If your midfield is getting absolutely owned, make changes. You have to make change. It was the last change Max made in the 83rd minute. I'm sorry. That's not good enough. That's not good enough.
And how did McKennie play a full 90 yesterday?
How did McKennie get a 90-minute match out of that showing yesterday?
I would have subbed him off right after that pass. Honestly, I'd take a seat on the bench, bud. You don't want to hit that from there. Moretti will hit one and he'll score.
It's wild. So when we get to the players and the players part, McKennie's in there. McKennie's one that was on a shocker. And when I said that on the watch along, a lot of the responses were, he's not on a shocker, that's him. So it's how many Juventini feel about McKennie whatnot, but he should have been doing better because it was finally him in an actual midfield position and not out wide, right? So I expected way more, and all of us should have expected much more. Regardless of who the player is, when you're in front of goal like that, you have got to hit the target. Claudio Marchisio had a tweet about it, and he said, if you're going to be like that in front of goal, you deserve what you get. Like, you get what you deserve if you're going to be basically like a coward in front of him. Not that he was targeting McKennie. He was speaking to the team. It was more a thing about the team, but you cannot be weak like that in front of target. We have to all be killers. And it's crazy to watch a professional football in a position like that and us come away with absolutely nothing. Well, we didn't come away with nothing. We ended up with a corner that went right back down our throats. So thank you very much. 2-0, we would have clamped down 100% and played the exact same way we did. Like, but we did 1-0. At least you'd be 2-0. Whatever. And we would have got the result. Might have been talking a little bit differently, but I bet you we still would have been frustrated that we would have played that way, because it would have been exactly how it played out yesterday. 65 minutes we're talking about without an attempt, everybody. This is inexcusable. Absolutely inexcusable, unacceptable. I hope to never see it again. Like I said, because if this becomes a norm, I don't want to start drinking at 6 a.m., Lucci. Come on.
Yes, you do.
No. So we're going to open things up to storm the barn earlier, because this is just, we're getting thoughts and feelings as far as the locker room, as far as the players, we want to get a little more into that. If Fiorentina's pressing, we talked about this a lot. Anthony and myself actually have talked about this a lot. As a player, when you play the game, okay, and they're trying to rule you out of a game or whatnot, it's up to you to find ways to get involved and help your team overall. So as much as Max, his adjustments and his tweaks, whatnot, which he was well known for in his time at Juventus previously, he was the king of that, making that switch, making that adjustment that all of a sudden turned the tide. It hasn't been present since not last year, and so far this year it hasn't been happening as well. So for me, the players have to start fighting. They have to start fighting and finding ways to contribute. You can't have McKennie play a 90-minute game like that. You can't have Locatelli go through a game like that where he's basically invisible, can't make a 5-foot pass, a 6-foot pass. Like, it's crazy. And the frustrating part about yesterday, which again, anybody that might not want to put as much onus on Max needs to realize that you're frustrated that it's moments of individual brilliance, but yesterday the only way we were going to get through was because of individual brilliance. So it's up to Max. When you have that many guys in your lineup struggling and not contributing, it's a bit more than just the players too. So
absolutely,
I'm going all in and studs up on the team and Max, but it's got to be a hell of a lot better. While the Storm the Barn questions come in, this is the time, everybody, get your questions in. I'm going to ask you something, Lucci, because this has been going on a lot, and you're starting to hear fans say, I'm done. I can't support this team anymore. Like, it's unwatchable and whatnot. What comes to mind for you when you start to hear things like that and comments like that?
It's frustrating because, people tell you they've been watching this team for how many years, and they enjoy the players, they enjoy the club atmosphere, like all those things. If you're going to stop being a fan because of, a couple ugly seasons, because of the coach, some of the players, whatever it may be, then you're not a true fan. You kind of hopped on the bandwagon when things were hot. Now then, when things are trying to ramp back up, you're jumping off. So I don't agree with that. Again, I'm not going to tell people how to be fans and who to cheer for, whatever. it's none of us like it. Let's not get that mistaken. None of us are enjoying this time right now. We're enjoying what we're watching, but you still got to support. It's your team. It's, you like some of those players, you like the team. You've always been a fan of the team. You got to continue to support even during the rough times. It's same with Italy. You support when they don't make the World Cup, but you support them in the Euro. It's a vicious circle.
Yeah. And it is. And for me, it's like, it's not even a question of not supporting anymore or going through that. I don't know if some haven't been through, like I've been through worse. And I mean, this is frustrating, but it's by no means, in my opinion, the same as 2006 and Boy. Like that was the absolute worst. But even the years when we fought back and then we started to move forward, okay, you started, like, the fight was there, and we still went into every match fighting, even with those rosters. Very, very weak. And the biggest thing for me is Max figuring this out, because, and one of the problems is that you're trying to find a new identity. You're trying to kind of redefine yourself. I'm left asking, are we actually trying to build a new identity based with the new faces and everything, or are we trying to force them into a past identity?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Because I can't help but feel that, Luch. Like I can't help but watch this Juve and feel like we are trying to pigeonhole these guys into the days of the BBC and this lockdown with some great offensive firepower that we could find goals and whatnot. And we had the individual brilliance. And I can't help but feel like we are trying to recreate that rather than establish something new with these guys. And I thought that was going to be the blueprint after Roma. Okay, this could be the way. This could be the way this new era moves forward. But since, it's been right back to square one.
Yeah. And I saw some tweets yesterday that were kind of concerning, saying, Max is doing the best he can with the players he has. This team's not, doesn't have much quality. First of all, I'll tackle that after I finish this, but saying another coach would not do as well as, would do even worse than what Max is doing. First of all, you can't say that because you don't know that for sure. This team on paper has probably one of the best attacks in the league. And the fact that we can barely score a goal a game, that comes down to Max, not the players. Whatever he's teaching them in training is not working, or if he's teaching them at all, we don't know. And Max has to figure it out. If he's going to stay and be the coach, he's got to find a balance some way, because right now it's score a goal within the first 10 minutes and defend for the rest. And that's not a successful way to win. Like, you're not going to be able to win anything that way. And you're playing Fiorentina. It's not PSG. It's not Real Madrid. On paper, they're not. You have the better team. In every position, you have the better team. There's no excuse. It's not acceptable.
Yeah, it's not. Things like yesterday, that is not acceptable and shouldn't become the norm. And that's the fear. That's the fear, is that it's like, I have this discussion with many Juventini. Is this planned? Like, is that the plan? I can't help but think, and everybody on the live here can talk to us about it too, but do we honestly believe the players just are not executing what Max wants? I fail to believe that this group of players, these professionals, are just simply unable to achieve what any coach is trying to get them to do. No. I fail to believe that. And I'll tell you, like, when I watched the training session in Los Angeles, one training session, okay, is all it took. It was a couple hours, but the rotations that they made, okay, and all they worked on that I saw in the majority of that session was playing out of the back. But when they made their changes, when Rugani came in, when Gatti came in, when they started switching up between Bonucci and Bremer and all that, and then when they were changing Luca Pellegrini and Alexandro, each guy fulfilled their part in playing out of the back perfectly and as planned by Max. And when he stopped and blew it dead and then started making directions, they all followed it to a T. So I fail to believe that we're just not listening to Max and that the players just aren't doing what they're told.
Mm-hmm.
I can't buy that. When DeScilio, Rugani, Pellegrini, Sandro, Gatti, all these guys are coming into training sessions and executing the plans and the scenarios to a T, how it's designed.
Yeah,
Even in the midfield.
Don't tell me these players aren't competent players. They're all professionals. They know how to play. They're all relatively talented, some more than others, of course, but don't tell me they can't understand what Max is trying to teach them in training when it comes. I can't
buy that.
No, there's no way. And again, like we said, this team is much better than it was last year, probably even better than the year before.
Yeah.
That excuse is not flying with me anymore.
Ball Leader 10, grazie for the donation. Whatnot. Will we change our coach if we don't reach Champions League round 16? The question mark is, how committed are they going to be? What's the boiling point? Nobody knows. That's the thing. We don't know what Juve's boiling point is on the whole Max thing. Like, what is the breaking point? Probably, I would say that the Champions League, if I had to guess, Champions League results are not going to be part of it, to be honest. If we don't get out of the group, though, I don't know. It's an interesting one, isn't it? It's an interesting one. I don't know. It's a tough one.
Let me ask you something, Al. So let's say when Chiesa comes back and we see him defending as much as we saw Kostic and Di Maria do yesterday, how do you think he's going to feel? How, like, coming off the season he had with Pirlo compared to the downfall he had last year before he got injured, and now seeing him, in our own half for most of the game?
Yeah.
That we're wasting one of the best Italian talents in, right now. Wasting him to play defense. Not acceptable.
Anthony saying Max needs to get out of the group. It's a tricky group. It is a tricky group. Benfica is no slouch, and it's gonna be interesting. So going back to Max's words and everything, again, he's always been that planner. Everybody knows he's not a motivator. He's a plan. That's why his words about PSG didn't surprise me, because he's already thinking about this. And okay, regardless of these results, the Benfica one is the most important, because it's almost like he's already conceding to getting second in the group.
Yeah.
And that's the part that really bothers the Juventini. It's, like, our coach is already looking at this in this manner. What does it do for the players? Well, Arriva Bene's words were completely different. Arriva Bene said, we fear nobody. We shouldn't fear anyone. Well, you need to talk to your manager, and you guys need to get in line, because this is what I talk about from the top down. It needs to all be on the one wavelength, right? And these are just interviews, and I get it. Don't look too much in interviews and whatnot, but it'd be nice if they all were united in one thought process and one drive, in order to have that goal and that game plan where you're trying to get an entire team to achieve something. That mentality needs to be shared across, like Arriva Bene's mentality. Okay, this is where we're at. This is what I want. This is what I expect. We shouldn't go into any match fearing anybody. We need to go in there and fight regardless of who it is. So it's interesting, but Max has never been that guy. Max is always the planner. So he's already planned out this Champions League group stage, and he's determined which games are the most important. Well, whether we like it or not, and I don't like it, to be honest, he's a planner. He's not a motivator. He's a planner. He's a meticulous organizer, basically. Like, that's what he does. He plans and he manages schedules, and he chunks them out throughout an entire season. He's a calculator, for God's sakes. That's what he is. That's what he does. He's always been that guy. That's why when he said that about PSG, it came to no surprise for me, right? But after yesterday, it's the last thing we want to hear. Storm the Barn, do you agree that Max has got to be sacked after the PSG game if we play like yesterday and get trashed? I'm all in for that decision. Is that your breaking point, Luch?
It's tough to say no, but it's not going to happen. Like, if we play exactly like that on Tuesday, first of all, it's going to be a lot worse than 1-1. And second, it's hard to back the coach on what his decisions are and his decision making and whatever. Like, that would, You can't play like that against top teams. Not that Fiorentina's a slouch or anything, but they're not PSG. And if you play exactly like that, how can you support your coach after playing exactly like that 2 games back to back?
Yeah.
Can't.
So that would be our 6th game this season.
Yes.
Anthony and I said, Max, we give him like a third of the season, probably like around 12 to 15 games, somewhere in there, and see if there's progress being made. But if we're tight in the mix in Serie A, say we're remaining around 2-3 points out, maybe we're undefeated, still a good defensive record. Is that enough to get rid of them? If we still just play in this manner, but the result, we're still in the mix for up top in Serie A.
But have we played any top sides yet other than Rome? Like, what happens when we got to play Napoli or Lazio, who are playing pretty well, or Inter or Milan? You think you're going to get the same results playing like you did like that? And you're going to
let's get to the next phase.
Well,
who comes in? Who comes in? Say they make a brash decision. We move Max after the PSG match because it's a thrashing or whatever, which I don't think is going to happen, and we'll get to that. Say that happens and they decide, okay, yeah, you're gone. Who do you bring in?
And this is what I said before. Like,
are you not almost conceding a lot of this season because of how many fresh faces are in to just all of a sudden bring in a manager that might have a completely different style and method of how he wants to go about? Is that not putting too much then on the players?
Yes, it is. But you're also maybe giving the players a little more freedom in the final third to show some creativity attacking wise, where Max doesn't seem to allow them to do that. He's just telling them, okay, guys, have fun. Go try to do something, and then we'll score a goal, and then we'll defend. What would you lose realistically if you're trying to bring in someone who's trying to bring in something a little different? Yes, maybe you won't tie 1-1. Maybe you'll score 2 or 3 goals. Maybe you'll concede 2, but you're still winning. Isn't that what's important?
Yeah.
I've seen a couple mentions in here, Zidane, De Zerbi. I'd take either of them. I'd consider either of them, to be honest.
Maybe the next manager, Juve needs to get away from the Italian thing.
Maybe.
Is it an Italian thing? But you can't even say that because there's good young Italian managers that are trying to play the game with a modern approach, right?
Mm-hmm.
For Max, the big thing with Max has always been the results. Always been the results. And that's what a lot of Juventini always defended him on, was the results. But it's interesting now because when you're not at the top and you're not winning trophies, all of a sudden they're starting to see what a lot of us saw way back when, which was when those results come unearned and unwarranted, you start to think how long before those results go away completely.
Mm-hmm.
Like, needs to be a little bit more convincing. But the biggest thing for me, I need to see a team that fights. I need to see that effort. And if something's not working in a game, we have every right as fans to basically expect more and want more out of a manager who's one of the highest paid in Serie A. I think he's the highest paid in Serie A.
I think he is the highest, yeah.
We're right to expect more and expect changes. So this is a part that a lot of Juventini were frustrated about. And it said Max rested Dusan for PSG, most likely. But then afterwards, with his words, essentially is implying that PSG game doesn't matter. Surely it would have made sense to play him and try and keep up the league pressure. This is why what I was alluding to earlier is those words didn't surprise me.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to go into the PSG match and just fold. Like, if you consider our playing style folding, well then sure, because it's probably going to be very defensive, obviously. But we're not going to go in there and fold. Like, that's not going to be the game plan going into that match and folding.
Yeah.
Him saying those words is exactly what I'm trying to get at. Has always been Max. He is dishonest. He is dishonest in his words. He never reads the room. That's Max. So what his words are, they show nothing and they tell nothing about what's actually going down and what's going to happen. Dusan was rested for sure for PSG. No question. And we're not going to just go in and fold and whatnot. Should he still have played yesterday is a completely different discussion, and maybe some would have still started him. Some would have probably for sure brought him on when you've got that goal threat and you need a goal and, you want to win. But again, that's the part that's driving me nuts. We didn't push for a win yesterday after that game got leveled. We did nothing to push for 3 points. That's the part that is completely unacceptable and infuriating. You can't win if you don't try.
Right.
It's that simple.
And just to add on to that, if we're playing the same way we did yesterday, Dusan's not going to get any service anyway. So what's the point of resting him? He's going to be stranded on an island against the 4 PSG defenders, and we'll be lucky to have 3 attempts on target if we play like that.
Yeah, and there's still some more Storm the Barns I'm trying to track here. So we got another one here. Chiesa's name has been included in the Champions League list. When is he coming back to action? October. Latest updates on his recovery. So there hasn't been a whole lot, to be honest. There's still question marks. So the fact that his name is included is a positive, a big positive. So it's promising. There were still reports that it was going to be 2023 before you see him. And I mean, that could still be the case, but I would have to think not. I would have actually expected him at the end, towards the end of this month, to start getting minutes in at the end of September. So maybe, just maybe, but there are still no reports there. We had a Storm the Barn here that I wanted to get into, and it was trying to just locate it here. The live chat's been absolute fire. You guys are amazing. Take the time to like the video while you're here. If you're new to the channel, obviously subscribe. I'm trying to track down, I didn't, but it was about Locatelli. And it was essentially, is he overrated? What do we think about Locatelli as a Metsala, and man, we got into this yesterday as well. We got into this yesterday about I have my doubts about him as a Metsala. Yesterday was not a good showing, but it's hard when you have a new piece like Paredes in there. McKennie gets lost positionally at the best of times, but with McKennie and Locatelli completely invisible, I was saying yesterday, I would have pulled McKennie. I would have brought Moretti in, but let Moretti play as an attacking mid in the middle and use Locatelli and Paredes as almost like you have 2 Registas, a 2-man base to kind of help. Widen us out so that's not just Paredes dropping deep all the time. Widen us out a bit and allow us to have 2 targets to hopefully try and break those lines. But this is the thing. This team's idea of breaking the lines is sending those Metsalas early. The problem is that at the back, they're all pushed under and you can't find those guys. Bring another back, try and create a little more space. Try to make them tired. Make Fiorentina tired with more options at the back and passing it around, working it around, going one side to the other. Make them use all that energy, right? We were just way too predictable and too easy. But without going too far down that road, because everything was awful yesterday, Locatelli as Metsala. Locatelli in general, is he overhyped?
No, I don't think so. He's had a rough couple games, but then again, the whole team has. It's not like he's been our worst player by any means. And when, like you said, new piece, new position, I like him more in a pivot, and maybe with Paredes beside him and Pogba's a little more advanced. Like maybe we'll see that when Pogba comes back or when Moretti plays. But I don't understand why everyone's giving him so much hate. None of the team was good yesterday. Hardly anyone was good. We had 2, 3, maybe average players. Everyone else was below average. So I don't understand why Luca's, from probably one of our best players last year, is getting the most hate this year when you have players like McKennie and, Alexandro Cuadrado, who have all been worse. Give me a break.
Yeah. Locatelli, I do not think he's overhyped. I think he's a solid midfielder. I think he's got crazy potential. It's just a matter of unlocking it. And I've been saying for the longest time. Everybody that's been saying he's Metzala, he's Regista, or not. He is a two-man pivot midfielder all day, all day, every day. Because in the two-man pivots, those guys can get forward, but he's not the guy that needs to get right up in there and that we need to be looking for 10 plus goals out of. Like, that's not Locatelli.
No.
Locatelli is a two-man pivot midfielder. He will support, get out to the top of the area and probably have some shots and some goals from there. He's not the guy getting into the box and being in the, like, that's not him. He could fill the role in a pinch. That's not him. He's your controlling tempo guy and stabilizer. That's why yesterday from the get-go, I said, I don't know about the midfield and its balance. I don't know. And it played out that way. And it was bad. But Locatelli, I will not give up on him by any means.
All I know is that McKennie cannot keep starting for this team. The talent's not there. The position talent, like the recognition, the decision making, it's not there. I don't care what anyone says about, his box-to-box abilities, blah, blah, blah. Time and time again, like Cuadrado, we've seen him make the wrong decisions. No, he's finished. He's a bench player at best.
So I got to say this. In terms of the midfield, if we're going to pick somebody that's maybe at the bottom of the totem pole, who's at the bottom of the totem pole for you?
See, I want to see more of Fajoli before I make this statement, but it's got to be Fajoli or McKennie for me. Now that you've gotten rid of Artur and Zach. Yeah. See, even for me, Zach would have not been the bottom of the totem pole, in my opinion. I think he's probably a little more defensively solid and I don't know, physical compared to McKennie and Fajoli even, but different types compared to Fajoli.
I've always talked about midfields being a unit, balance, having to balance out and everything like that. Rabiot's energy and physicality was actually missed yesterday. Do you agree with that statement?
Compared to what McKennie brought? Absolutely. Rabiot is 2 steps ahead, and that's saying something.
Yeah, Rabiot's at least the energy, the level. He does pressure opponents, and he wins ball backs, right? That's the problem with yesterday. You didn't have a ball winner either.
Mm-hmm.
Paredes tried his best through the first 20 minutes, but outside of that, no, like, you didn't have a ball winner there, and we didn't pressure to get that ball back. That was the part I had a big problem with, is us not trying to go and get that ball back immediately. So we could sit here all day for hours and hours and hours talking about what went wrong yesterday. It's frustrating. The positives are defensively, we are stout. We are stout defensively. I don't know if there's too many teams that absorb as much as Juve, and through 5 games, only 2 goals allowed. Bremer's an absolute beast.
Yep.
Bremer's a beast. Danilo is doing well, regardless of how a lot of Juventini feel, whatnot. Danilo's doing well. He's holding his own. Middle of the park, which now we have a good mix and we can achieve that balance easier. We shouldn't be going into matches where that's our worst phase, in my opinion. And yesterday it was. So the mix has to be right in the midfield. I talked about that. As soon as we lose that mix, it's going to fall apart. But still, we need to do much more as a team and as a unit. But we can't keep leaving Vlahovic and then Milik alone on islands.
Right.
We have to stop that. That statistic that came out a few days ago that I shared on a Matchday Live, whatnot, like, you have Haaland, who's got a goal every 15 touches. Vlahovic is a goal every 19 touches. The difference is the guy touches the ball 5 times in a game.
Mm-hmm.
We have to get the best out of our players. This is something that Max takes heat for, especially when you think of Chiesa before his injury. Chiesa was almost non-existent. Definitely not the force he was coming off the year prior. Max has to start, well, for lack of a better word, Max needs to maximize what he gets out of his guys. Okay, so I'm done with Max. I need maximize. Let's go.
When upcoming now, when Rabiot's back, who like, you're gonna play him and Locatelli together?
Well, this is just it, is because you have an issue there because I don't see Locatelli as being that offensive midfielder out of there. I don't see
And
it.
it's not going to be Rabiot either.
No, so it's Meret. It's between, for me, I said that position is, if I had to put a depth chart to it, if everybody was fit, it goes Pogba, Miretti, Fagioli.
So then you're keeping Rabiot on the bench for Locatelli.
Rabiot's on the right side whenever he plays, ball-winning midfielder. McKennie would have to play in that role, but McKennie's, For me, Locatelli, he could play on the right when you have one of those offensive guys, and him and Paredes become the pivots. And you have your offensive guy. Locatelli can do enough defensively, but he should not be the one we rely on offensively, in my personal opinion.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. And McKennie shouldn't be either.
I agree.
And I was saying that before. That's why we got into this yesterday, before yesterday's match.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's like, I don't see it. I don't see who the offensive threats can be. It turned out that it didn't even matter who the offensive threat was because we couldn't even retain possession or even get by the press properly. So frustrating.
But
PSG,
I think with the last point, with the proper attacking midfielder, whether he wanted to rest Moretti for PSG, that's fine. But when you have someone like Fagioli with similar characteristics to Moretti, that would have been the good time to him to start yesterday instead of McKennie. If it doesn't work, then you have McKennie off the bench. You still have Moretti came on anyway, so you could have played him anyway. Like where was the attacking creativity going to come from? It's not McKennie or Locatelli's game to do that. Like he was just grasping at straws playing this with the starting 11. You expect Di Maria to do everything.
Bikramjeet, Allegri just doesn't look like the Allegri who won 5 titles. He has lost. And I mean, I guess that's kind of what I've been saying is the adjustments. That's the part that frustrates me most, lack of adjustments. But the positives are defensively, we are stout. We are in the mix in Serie A. Okay. We haven't faltered like drastically like last season and have a huge gap to try and emerge from, whatnot. When asked about Serie A and the Scudetto and whatnot, and Max said, who knows who's going to run away with it? Maybe nobody will. He says if a team goes on a run, then they can. Maybe it'll be us, whatnot. Well, we need to do a hell of a lot better against, opponents like Sampdoria, and, getting draws like that. But for me, it's tough pill to swallow yesterday's performance. PSG. We're going to wrap things up talking about PSG. That's going to take place on Tuesday there. Okay. How do you feel going into this one? What do you think is going to go down in that one, Lucci?
I don't know. It depends what team shows up. Depends what the starting 11's like. There's a lot of questions, a lot of question marks. I still think we're going to lose, to be honest. I think it'll be a 2-0 loss. I just
2-0 loss.
I just don't see. Look, we might play a little better. Don't get me wrong, because I don't think we can play any worse than we did yesterday. But I don't see a positive outcome. We're going to see Vlahovic up there on an island for most of the game. We'll be lucky if he gets a couple shots on target. Quadrado, if he's playing right back, we're in trouble. Sandro looks like he's out, so don't worry about him. But then you got Bonucci, Bremer. I'm trying to predict Bonucci, Bremer, Di Chilio, and Danilo on the right. So you push Quadrado up, I guess, with him and Di Maria. I don't know.
So New York Juventino will either win 1-0 or get blown out. Anthony, 1-0 win. Book it. Whew. PSG will hurt us real bad. I
don't think it's going to be too bad, but I still think it's going to be a loss.
Yeah, B1890 at least 2 goals difference in PSG's favor. It's going to be a tough one. There's no doubt. I mean, I think Juve against the better sides. I mean, we saw the one and only time we had a test in Serie A, we played very well against Roma. There was still that drop off. The problem is if you have that drop off against PSG, it can be devastating.
What?
So it's one of those things. We know even if we find a goal, even if we get ahead, that's almost the worst case for Juve. Like, it's almost like we need to like draw this one out and maybe score late so that when we shut things down, at least it's late in the game. Like, that's how it honestly feels with his Juve. So it's going to be tough, but this is the last thing you wanted to see in the match prior to PSG. An uninspired, unmotivated, flat performance. The other thing is that could be the ticket, and if they're put under fire and enough fire and they feel the heat from the fan base and everything like that, maybe, just maybe, it's enough to actually spark them and light a fire under their ass. But there needs to be more from all involved: management, coaching, adjustments out of Allegri, everything like that. I do have faith that when they play the bigger teams, it'll be better and a better outcome. In terms of Max, Wachi basically saying Dusan at Fiorentina, McKennie and Chiesa under Pirlo, Locatelli at Sassuolo, etc. Guys need to stop blaming players and take a serious look at Max Allegri. He's a coach and he should know how to coach. The players play their part as well, and they need to step it up and whatnot. But there's no doubt nobody's protecting Max.
Yeah.
Max has to put it together ultimately. And we've been calling Max out for his lack of adjustments. Something that he is known for has been non-existent in terms of the players setting the standard. This is the problem I have too, is a match like yesterday and then not taking accountability for it, even if it's just an interview or whatnot. Are the right things being said behind closed doors? I hope so. I hope so, because that can't be acceptable. And whatever Max chooses to say to us, whatever in the public, whether it bothers us or not, is what it is. But behind closed doors, that message needs to come through, because the scary part about it is we see it consistently. Like, this isn't a one-off. Yesterday isn't a one-off match. We see it every match, whether it's 25 minutes, 35 minutes, 40 minutes. Yesterday was 65 minutes. You still see it consistently. It has to stop. That has to stop. It's up to everyone involved, the players and Max. So I hope they get it together. Tuesday is going to be a hell of an interesting match. We'll see what happens. No matter what, it's fino alla fine. Forza Juve. I'm not going anywhere. I saw messages here in the live chat saying nobody is saying they're going to start supporting. Actually, there is a lot. There's a lot of that going on in social media right now. And again, there's a lot of it. If you take a look around, I would have to expect that they're just, the ties to the club aren't there. And who knows why certain people become fans. For me, it's not an option. For Lucci, it's not an option. We're with the team. Ride or die. Okay, we see what happens. Everybody's rooting for Max. This might have been a frustrating episode, okay, for people to listen to. And I know it sucks when we go through these games. Nobody wants to see what happened yesterday. Okay. It's not like we're coming out here, we're criticizing Max and we want him to fail and we want another manager. It's like, I don't care. This is my whole thing. I don't care who the name associated with the club is. And that goes for the players and that goes for the coach. I don't care who the names are.
Yeah.
I expect certain things out of this team. I expect us to fight. I expect us always to be competitive based on our resources, based on who we are, based on our history. And I don't care to sacrifice that no matter who's involved. So I don't care who the coach is. Okay, I backed Sarri, for God's sakes. I couldn't stand the guy, and I backed him when he came to Juve and whatnot. I don't care about the names involved. I just expect them to bring a certain standard. Right now, we are below the standards we should have as a club, in my opinion. And it needs to pick up and it needs to change. We're pro Max. We need Max to sort it out, because I honestly feel no change will happen during the season.
No.
Don't expect that. So Max, figure it the fuck out. That's all I got to say. Lucci, how do you want to wrap this thing up?
Yeah, I think you nailed you hit the nail on the head. He's got to figure it out. I don't, like I said, as much as I'm not a fan of him right now, I don't see him going anywhere. So I hope he can figure it out for everyone's sake. And I don't want to hear anyone say the players are not smart, they're not competent, they're not capable. They're definitely capable. Let's put them in the right positions to succeed so the team can succeed. And we can go back to being a competitive team. We know we're capable of it. Now let's show it on the pitch. That's it.
Exactly. It's time to put up or shut up. Let's go. We're capable of much more. And, people want to make it pro Allegri, anti-Allegri. I don't care who's involved. Have standards, set the tone, pick it up. Players and coach, a lot of work to be done. Again, the positives, we're in the mix in Serie A. I don't expect us to fall out of there. Okay. We'll be in the mix for the whole ride. Champions League. Let's get out of that group. We'll see what happens Tuesday. I'm going to bring you a daily update news video. Okay. Tomorrow, Tuesday, we're going to get right back into it with the match day live. Okay. And then I might have another watch along for that Champions League one. And if you think I get fired up over these Serie A games, wait for the Champions League. We'll see what happens. But again, thank you all for your support. Like the video, okay, while you're here. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Thank you all for the support. And congratulations to Abbas KT and Tom Snipes 10 and Fayez Alfiaz, who all won a 22-23 Juventus kit of their choice. So the first 3 are given away, and there will be more giveaways this season, okay? So it pays to be part of the AJC army, all right? Share the content. Be a friend. Tell a friend. Thank you all for the support. Let's all go enjoy the rest of our weekends, and we will see what happens this week with Juventus, okay? Ciao tutti. As always, no matter what, fino alla fine, Forza Juventus, we ain't going anywhere, okay? Ciao tutti.
Ciao.